The story of the 12 tribes of Israel. They told you your story began in chains. They told you your lineage was forged in the belly of a ship, beneath the weight of suffering, beneath the cries of mothers torn from their children, beneath the stench of blood and salt. But deep inside, something never sat right with that version of history. Something in your bones whispered that there was more, that your name carried weight before it was ever stripped away, that your tongue spoke divine words before it was silenced, that your spirit remembered things this world tried to make you forget. From birth, you felt it. The disconnection, the hollow space every textbook left untouched. The way they avoided the question of who you truly were before slavery. Before the whips, before the auction blocks, they gave you a history soaked in pain and tried to make it your beginning. But even in the darkness, even in the lies, there's a light that keeps calling. A knowing, a truth that breaks through like thunder. Because what if I told you your ancestors didn't just wear crowns of gold, but carried the covenant of the Most High? What if the blood running through your veins is the same blood that crossed the Red Sea, not as slaves, but as a chosen nation? What if the very prophecies they read in church every Sunday were speaking about your people, and they never told you? You weren't just descendants of kingdoms. You were part of the kingdom, the one chosen above all nations. The 12 tribes scattered, hidden, and now rising. And now, your soul is remembering. That's why you felt out of place. That's why no history book ever satisfied you. Because your truth wasn't written by men, it was written by God. And it has waited patiently to find you again. In your dreams, in your questions, in your discomfort with the narrative. That discomfort was holy. It was sacred unrest. It was the voice of your ancestors crying out from the dust, "Wake up. You are more than what they called you." And now, here you are. Searching, watching, listening, not by accident, but by divine appointment. Because when the truth comes, it doesn't knock. It breaks in like fire. And nothing can stop it. You are not lost. You are not forgotten. You are not cursed. You are the evidence of prophecy. You are the proof that no amount of oppression can erase what God has ordained. You are standing at the edge of something powerful. This is not just history. This is spiritual revelation. And if you feel that burning in your chest right now, it's because your spirit knows this story isn't new. It's your story, and it's time you hear it, completely. Before we continue, subscribe and like this video. It helps us spread a message many have tried to silence. Now let's begin. Who are the true Israelites, the ancient identity erased? They called him Jacob, a name birthed in struggle, shaped by wrestling even in the womb. But this name would not last forever. One night, under the black veil of an ancient sky, Jacob found himself alone. And in that solitude, something divine happened. He wrestled, not with a man, not with fear, but with something greater. An angel, a being of God. Flesh clashed with spirit until the break of dawn, neither side giving in. And as the light threatened to rise, the stranger spoke, "Let me go." But Jacob held firm. "I will not let you go unless you bless me." And the blessing came, not in gold, not in land, but in identity. "Your name shall no longer be called Jacob," the voice declared, "but Israel. For as a prince, you have power with God and with men, and have prevailed." Israel, a name that echoed purpose. A covenant sealed not just with words but with destiny. From that moment, a lineage began to take form. 12 sons, each one a tribe. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Issachar, Zebulun, Joseph, Benjamin, names that would later become banners for nations. Bloodlines marked not just by family, but by prophecy. Zoom out across the ancient sands of Canaan, and you will see them begin to move. Across time, across empires, from Pharaoh's bondage to wilderness wandering, from Jericho's fall to Jerusalem's glory. The tribes spread, their footsteps imprinting history. But then, something happened. They did not vanish in one night. There was no explosion, no apocalyptic ending. Instead, they were erased. Slowly, deliberately, rewritten, colonized, tattered. The names faded first, then the skin tone, then the languages, then the story. The people of the book became strangers to the very text that bore witness to their origin. But the prophecy was not forgotten. While empires rose and fell, and kings traded truth for power, prophecy stayed buried, waiting. You see, history can be edited, but prophecy cannot be cancelled. The world tried to erase your name, your place, your blood, your legacy. They replaced your image with painted lies. They hid your tribe behind modern borders. They rewrote your beginnings with the ink of their own agenda. But the scrolls remember. The Most High remembers. And though the world changed your name, prophecy never stopped calling you Israel. The prophecies that reveal you are in the Bible. Imagine standing in the middle of a wind-swept desert, the air thick with silence, holding a book thousands of years old, Deuteronomy. You open it, not to find ancient words about some far-off people, but to discover the prophecy of your very existence. Not a metaphor, not a symbol, a revelation. These aren't just verses, they are fingerprints. Proof that your bloodline was spoken of, in advance, by the mouth of God Himself. The pages speak clearly, you shall go into Egypt again with ships. Pause. Who else in history was taken into captivity by ships? Who else was chained, shoulder to shoulder, with no room to turn, no voice to scream, crossing a sea not for freedom, but for torment? The transatlantic slave trade wasn't just a dark page in world history, it was the fulfillment of divine prophecy. This was not a coincidence. It was covenant, broken and now unfolding. And there you shall be sold unto your enemies as bondmen and bondwomen. Picture the auctions, families separated, children screaming for mothers they would never see again, strong men stripped of name and dignity. This wasn't just racism. This wasn't just greed. It was Deuteronomy 28 in living color. The yoke of iron. It wasn't poetic. It was literal. Cold metal biting into skin. Iron chains clamped around black necks like cattle. You see it in old photographs. You see it in museums. You see it in the haunted eyes of your ancestors. This wasn't just slavery. This was a curse, a warning turned into reality, because a chosen people broke a covenant. They would lose their name. No longer Judah, Benjamin, Levi, or Issachar. They would become Negro, colored, African American. Their identity rewritten by the oppressor's hand. Their language was stolen. The God hidden beneath layers of whitewash doctrine. A royal priesthood, reduced to statistics. But the scriptures never forgot them. And still, the curse continued. You shall be a proverb and a byword among all nations. The mocking tones, the jokes, the stereotypes, the criminalization of melanin, the labeling of brilliance as threat. Every insult hurled wasn't random, it was written. Now look around. Police brutality, systemic oppression, educational inequality, broken homes, targeted incarceration, it all echoes the very curses God warned about. These are not new battles. They are ancient consequences. But here is the revelation, this isn't just your history. This is biblical destiny. You were never forgotten. You were never invisible. You are not a footnote in history. You are a headline in prophecy. You were written in the scriptures long before you took your first breath. You are the people of the book. The curses match not just vaguely, but with surgical precision. From the ships, to the chains, to the erasure of identity, to the struggle still raging in your community today, it was all foretold. This isn't just about what happened. It's about who it happened to. And that, who, is you. You are in the Bible. Not hidden, not lost, revealed. They fled into Africa, the great cover-up. After the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD, when Roman legions reduced the holy city to rubble and scattered its people to the winds, a great migration began, one not widely taught in traditional history books. The Israelites, once a thriving people bound to their sacred land, were now fugitives under siege. Not all fled north into Europe. Many, in an act of divine preservation and survival, turned southward. They crossed into the continent of Africa, not as tourists, not as traders, but as people running for their lives, carrying with them the covenant of their forefathers and the memory of a temple reduced to ash. You can almost see it now, a slow but steady movement across the arid wilderness of Egypt, through the Nile Valley, slipping quietly past the watchful eyes of imperial patrols, taking refuge in the lands where the empire met the jungle. They journeyed deep into the heart of Africa. This wasn't just migration, it was preservation, a chosen remnant retreating into the shadows of history. As the centuries passed, they continued westward, through Ethiopia, Sudan, Chad, Niger, until they reached the regions we now call Nigeria, Ghana, Togo, and Benin. These weren't aimless wanderers. These were tribes guided by divine memory, settling where rivers fed the land and where the traditions of their ancestors could survive under new names. Look at the old colonial maps, not the clean, revised versions in textbooks, but the aged, fading parchments from European explorers and missionaries. You'll find the names, Judah, Benjamin, Levi, cloaked under tribal designations like Ashanti, Igbo, Yoruba. Names that sound African on the surface, but ring familiar when spoken in the tongue of the scriptures. Consider the words of Rudolf Windsor in Babylon to Timbuktu. Greater than, in the year 70 AD, General Vespasian and his son Titus put an end to the Jewish state. During the period from Pompey to Julius, it has been estimated that over 1 million Jews fled into Africa. These weren't converts, they were remnants. Pockets of Hebrew culture, preserved in language, ritual, circumcision, dietary laws, and oral history. Even the Zondervan Bible Dictionary boldly acknowledges. Greater than, Ham, the youngest son of Noah, born probably about 96 years before the flood. He became the progenitor of the dark races, not the Negroes, but the Egyptians, Ethiopians, Libyans and Canaanites. Not the Negroes. A quiet admission that the Negroes, those shipped across oceans in chains centuries later, were not descendants of Ham, but of Shem. A direct connection to the Hebrew bloodline, tucked away in a dictionary most readers would overlook. As empires changed and colonialism swept across Africa, the identity of these people was buried under new flags, new religions, and rewritten histories. Yet the fingerprints remain, hidden in tribal customs, in migration patterns, in the oral stories passed down through grandmothers and elders who remember things that don't match the textbook versions. The truth is, they didn't vanish. They didn't disappear. They blended. They hid. They survived. The 12 tribes today, the scattered bloodline. You were scattered, not forgotten. From dusty scrolls and prophetic whispers, the 12 tribes of Israel took their ancient journey, once united, now dispersed. But though kingdoms fell, names changed, and oppressors rebranded bloodlines, the seed remained. Hidden in plain sight, the blood never lied. Judah, the warriors, the singers, the survivors, their legacy now breathes through the African Americans, those who bore the weight of chains and yet turned pain into rhythm, captivity into culture, and silence into gospel. From cotton fields to pulpits, from street corners to stages, Judah sings. And through their music, their resistance, their prayer, they echo a royal memory the world tried to erase. Benjamin, fierce and fearless, found today among Jamaicans, whose fire has never dimmed. A people who chant down Babylon, who walk with lion-hearted pride. Every drumbeat, every dreadlock, every cry for righteousness is the sound of a tribe that still remembers its pulse. Benjamin, once the youngest, still stands bold against all odds. Levi, the priesthood, the keepers of sacred things. Today, many see them in Haiti, the only nation born from a successful slave revolt. Voodoo misunderstood, Christianity reborn, rituals remembered. Despite poverty and storms, there's something spiritual, something divine that refuses to die in Haitian soil. Levi serves, still standing between man and God, as prophets once did. Ephraim and Manasseh, Joseph's sons, branches with blessing. Many believe that descendants now walk as Puerto Ricans and Cubans. Islands colonized, baptized in blood, yet defiant in soul. The salsa and the santeria, the rhythm and resistance, these twin nations carry a dual inheritance, the struggle of exile and the strength of favor. Reuben and Gad, firstborns of vision and valor. Their trail leads us to the Native Americans. People who walked this land before time were measured in Western terms. They were forced off their inheritance, buried under broken treaties. Yet the feathers, the chants, the sacred fires, they never forgot the earth speaks. Reuben weeps for lost birthright, and Gad still fights for what's sacred. Issachar, known for wisdom, discerners of time. Look to the Mexican people, their pyramids, their calendars, their language that dances with mystery. Conquered, yes, but never erased. The blood of Issachar still moves in the men who till the land, the women who pass stories through lullabies, the faith that blends heaven with earth. Naphtali, swift as a deer, free in spirit. Many say their footsteps echo in Argentina and Chile, nations stretched along mountains and coastline, full of beauty and contradiction. Revolution and poetry live there. Passion and exile. Naphtali, long silenced, still runs, light-footed, resilient, free. Zebulun, those who dwelt by the sea, now reflected in the Central Americans. Traders, builders, laborers. Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador, lands of fire and hunger, but also of hope. They move through deserts for a dream, and still kneel to pray. Zebulun never stopped building, even when their names were changed. Asher, the tribe blessed with abundance. We see traces in Colombia and Brazil. Coffee growers, oil fields, forests untouched. A people marked by joy and survival. Even in poverty, they throw festivals. Even in violence, they sing. Asher was promised richness, and though stolen, remnants remain, in the smiles of children, in the strength of mothers, in the gold still buried beneath their soil. And Dan remains a mystery. Their story is still unfolding. Some believe they vanished, others say they migrated in silence, assimilated in shadows. But wherever they are, the mark remains. The blood remembers. Heaven knows. The lost tribes were never lost, only renamed. Their stories were rewritten, their borders redrawn, but you can still trace the soul. In the rhythm of a Jamaican chant, in the cry of a black gospel choir, in the dance of a Puerto Rican street, in the silence of a native ceremony, in the Mexican song, the Haitian prayer, the Chilean protest, you see it. You feel it. Tattered, yes, but forgotten, never. Because the covenant was never cancelled. Just hidden, until now. It's bigger than blood, this is spiritual warfare. It's bigger than blood, much bigger. What you're about to understand will shake everything you thought you knew about identity, heritage, and destiny. This is not a conversation about DNA, skin tone, or cultural markers that fade with time. No, this is spiritual warfare, and it has always been. The enemy isn't after your last name, he's after your covenant. Because lineage without obedience means nothing. Heritage without repentance is powerless. What God sealed in the spirit cannot be measured in the flesh. Listen carefully. Some of the true Israelites today don't look alike. They don't come from the same neighborhoods. Some don't even know they're Israel by birth. They walk the streets of foreign lands, speak the languages of strangers, and bear names that were forced on their ancestors. But there's a fire in them. A stirring. A call to come home, not to replace, but to reposture. To bow low before their Maker and rise again in obedience. For they are not all Israel, which are of Israel. That's not just a verse from Romans chapter 9 verse 6, it's a key. A divine distinction. Because this is not about those who say they are Israel. This is about those whom God recognizes as Israel. Those whose hearts beat for His commandments. Those who have turned away from the world, not just in lifestyle, but in loyalty. Those who've answered the call not with their lips, but with their lives. You see, spiritual identity is not inherited like property. It's revealed through repentance, through humility, through the consistent return to the ancient path laid out by the Most High. The remnant that is rising now is not rising because of bloodline alone. They are rising because they've been refined, through suffering, through truth, through surrender. They've heard the call in their spirit, and they've said yes. It's not just about who you are. It's about what you're called to become. You are not merely a descendant, you are a witness. A vessel, a soldier in a spiritual war where your weapon is the word, and your shield is righteousness. You are being awakened to a truth that goes deeper than history. You're being reminded of a covenant that hell has tried to erase. But it's still written, not just in scrolls, but in your soul. This is why the enemy fights your mind. This is why distractions multiply the moment you begin to seek truth. Because your awakening is dangerous. Your obedience is explosive, and your return to your spiritual identity marks the downfall of everything built on lies. This is not about tribal pride. It's about prophetic purpose. And the ones who will endure in this hour are not those who claim Israel by tongue, but those who confirm it by transformation. So no, this isn't about looking alike. It's about living set apart. And when the Most High returns, He's not coming to gather a skin color. He's coming for a people who kept His covenant, loved His law, and followed His voice. A people who knew that the true name wasn't given by man, but restored by God. What now? The prophetic destiny of the 12 tribes. And now, the question echoes across time and nations, what now? What comes next for the scattered descendants of the 12 tribes of Israel? The answer is not buried in myth or locked away in ancient scrolls. It has already been written, not in the ink of men, but in the divine breath of prophecy. The book of Revelation, chapter 7, gives us a glimpse into what many have overlooked. It speaks of 144,000 sealed, 12,000 from each tribe. These are not random numbers or symbolic gestures. These are specific designations, divine assignments. A seal is not just a mark of identity, it is a declaration of belonging. It is a heavenly imprint that says, "These are mine." And when the sealing begins, it is not for entertainment. It is for battle. It is for deliverance. It is for glory. The tribes, once lost and scattered, are being gathered, not by man's schemes, but by God's sovereignty. They are being awakened, one by one, family by family, bloodline by bloodline. The spiritual DNA is stirring. The call is being heard in dreams, in revelations, in whispers that cut through the noise of the world. A generation is rising that does not even fully know why their spirit is restless, why they're being pulled towards something ancient, something holy. But they are, because the sealing has begun. And then we return to Ezekiel, an old prophet standing in a valley of dry bones. A hopeless scene. Bones disconnected, dry, brittle. It looked like the end. But heaven saw a beginning. "Son of man, can these bones live?" God asked. And Ezekiel replied, "O Lord God, you know." And with that, a miracle began. The bones came together, bone to its bone. Flesh covered them, breath entered them, and they stood, an exceedingly great army. This vision is not a metaphor for the dead coming back to life. It is a message to people who have forgotten who they are. A people whose history was stolen, language erased, tribes renamed, and identities buried beneath centuries of lies. But God never forgot. He never needed a map to find them. And He is breathing again, restoring memory, awakening purpose, reviving identity. Then comes the mystery of the two sticks. One for Judah and the children of Israel, his companions. One for Joseph, the stick of Ephraim, and all the house of Israel, his companions. God tells Ezekiel to join them into one stick in his hand. No longer divided, no longer at odds. The southern kingdom and the northern kingdom. The Jews and the so-called lost tribes. Reunited. One nation, one king, one destiny. That's not religious talk. That's prophetic reality. And it's not in the future, it's now. Quietly, powerfully, unstoppably, the sons and daughters of Abraham are being called home, not just to a place, but to a covenant. To tell the truth, to a God who never broke his promise. So what now? Prepare, because this isn't just a movement. It's a restoration, and it's already begun. The restoration of the tribes is the unraveling of deception and the beginning of truth taking root again. Those who hear the call are not merely invited to watch, they are summoned to stand, to speak, to awaken others. The time of silence is over. The bones are rattling. The seal is being applied. The sticks are becoming one. The scattered are gathering. The prophetic clock is ticking. If you're hearing this right now, understand something very clearly. This moment was written into your story long before you clicked this video. You're not watching by accident. You're not scrolling aimlessly. You didn't just stumble across these words. No, you were summoned. Something ancient within you is waking up, something that has waited in silence, buried beneath distractions, lies, and forgetfulness. And now, it stirs. You've felt it, haven't you? That quiet unrest. That feeling that something has always been off. That what you were taught doesn't sit right in your spirit. That the story handed to you, the version of faith, of identity, of truth, felt edited, filtered, controlled. That aching suspicion that there's more. And now, the veil is lifting. If these words pierce you, if your spirit is trembling, it's because your soul recognizes them. This is not entertainment. This is a reminder. You are being called, not just to curiosity, but to transformation. Research for yourself. Question what you were told. Don't just scroll, study. Open your scriptures. Fast, not for tradition, but for clarity. Repent, not from guilt, but from deception. Reconnect, not to religion, but to truth. You were never meant to walk this path alone. Find others who are waking up too. You'll know them by their hunger, by their sorrow, by their refusal to settle for half-truths. And when you find them, build with them. Sharpen each other. Pray with each other. Stand together. But before all that, breathe. Because you're not crazy, you're not late, and you're not alone. This awakening is sacred, and if it's stirring in you, it means you were always part of this story. Long before time. Long before nations and names and systems. You were known, and now, you're remembering. Subscribe if you're ready for more truth like this. Like this video to help more people break free from the lie. And comment the words, "I remember WHOIAM." That's not just a phrase. That's your first step.